Um, and I grew up in a small town of about 5,000 people on the East Coast in upstate New York. It used to be a canal town, and then it was a railroad town, and then it was a paper mill town. But by the time I was born, it wasn't anything. So that might sound familiar to some of you here. I remember older folks in the community telling me that there used to be a movie theater, shops, trains would stop there, take them to other places. But like James was talking about with Aberdeen, by the time I was living there, growing up there, I couldn't even imagine it, and I didn't like all the boarded up buildings. I didn't like the isolation. I didn't like being the only openly gay kid in my high school class. I was really desperate to get out, but I was a kid and I was stuck. So I did everything I could. Actually, I got into college early. I got into college when I was 16 years old. But I got a pretty big scholarship, but I couldn't go because my family couldn't afford to send me. And when that happened, something inside of me snapped a little bit. So to take the edge off of my isolation and my anger and my sadness, I started drinking really heavily and really dangerously, and I did that for several years as a pretty young person. And I had sat through classes on drug and alcohol abuse since fifth grade. I'd watched the two previous generations of my family deal with alcoholism, so I knew exactly what I was doing. It wasn't lack of information. It wasn't lack of awareness. And most people talk about addiction like it's all one individual person's choice to ruin their life. They don't talk about the ways that the economy makes people, especially young people, especially people with dreams of a better life, feel trapped and desperate. And they don't talk about the policies and the policymakers that keep us and our families trapped in unemployment or shit jobs or shitty schools and all of the powers and principalities making money off of our communities that are suffering. They don't talk about how in this community, Grays Harbor, as you've heard, has been investing in jail and prison expansions ever since the timber industry left, and how they make money off keeping people locked up. So they've got no economic incentive to fund people's healing and recovery. So that's the big picture I want us to keep in mind when we are sharing our own stories of addiction tonight. I don't want people to get up here and have us blame ourselves. Have us blame ourselves and shame each other for the ways that we have suffered and been in pain. I want to talk about the bigger picture. I want to talk about what this sick society has done to us, and also about the ways that we've fought back, even if we're not clean, even if we're not sober. And so the last thing I want to say is less about me, but more of a public service announcement. A lot of you already know right now that the heroin that's on the streets from here to Seattle is very strong, and a lot of it is cut with dangerous stuff. So if you or your loved ones are using intravenously right now, please be very careful. Don't leave each other alone. And if you see somebody overdosing, you can call Reverend Sarah for one thing. We decided she should start carrying naloxone in our communion kit right next to the body and blood of Christ, because naloxone is a nasal spray. And it's a nasal spray that if somebody is overdosing, you spray it, you administer it in their nose, and if they're not too far gone, it will revive them long enough to get them to the hospital and save their life. It also sends them into immediate withdrawal, so you do need to get them to a doctor. You can't just put the nasal spray in and then leave them, but it does save lives. That's why we carry it. Given the rates of overdose in this county, I'd really love to see every single church in Grays Harbor carry it in their first aid kit. So if all of you pastors and church folks are interested in that, you can come see me or Sarah, and we can tell you the pharmacy in Seattle that will prescribe it for your organization. And if you're coming out of jail or you're coming out of the hospital and you've been using and then you were cut off for a while, if you start using again, be very, very, very careful. Your tolerance has gone down. We are interested in you being alive. We love you as you are right now at Chaplains on the Harbor. So that's that's it for opening speaker on addiction. Do we have anybody else who wants to speak about addiction healing? Yeah. Do you want to come on